Um, Good afternoon, folks, and thanks for coming today. So everybody in the chamber and everybody who's joined us online, this is our first meeting of the Business and Culture Committee following our summer recess, and I hope that everybody had a restful break, doing whatever you enjoy doing when you're not in here at meetings. So I'm going to ask the director to take us through notice and summons of meetings and the members' attendance and apologies. Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. So, members, you're hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting of Business and Culture Committee, which will be held hybrid and conducted remotely via WebEx and physically in the Chamber of Guildhall in Derry. We take the roll call. Alderman Cook.
Online, Stephen.
Alderman Guy. Alderman Middleton.
Here, Stephen, online.
Councillor Boyle. Councillor Alex Duffy.
Apologies.
Councillor Farrell.
Here.
Councillor Harkin. Councillor Hart.
And chat.
Councillor Heaney.
Apologies.
Councillor Hutton.
Sure.
Councillor McDade. Councillor Mooney. Councillor O'Farrell. And Councillor O'Neillis.
And sure, Lena.
Thank you, members.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm going to read the broadcasting statement. I would like to remind everyone physically present at this meeting or in attendance remotely that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you're consenting to being filmed and to the use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes, and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting, and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. A copy of the Council privacy notice may be found on the Council website. So next item is declarations of members' interests. So you can state them now verbally, or you can state them when we come to the relevant agenda point. So we've got two deputations today, one from DFC, but the first one that we're going to hear is from Dr. Katrina Strain from ERNACT, and Katrina is going to give us an update on what ERNACT has been doing over the past year. So take it away, Katrina.
So my name's Katrina Strain and I am the General Manager with ERNACT. And ERNACT is owned by Derry City and Strabane District Council and Donegal County Council. And I'm just going to give you a presentation and an update on ERNACT and our activities. So if you want to put up the slides there. So I'll give you an overview of ERNACT, some information on our core ERNACT members, the current projects that we're involved in, the approach we take, and recent initiatives in Derry and Strabane Council area and future opportunities as well for the Council. Next slide, please. So an overview of ERNACT. We were founded in 1991. That's 34 years ago by Derry City and Strabane District Council and Donegal County Council to jointly pursue digital funding opportunities. And we have since evolved into an international network for collaboration with other EU regions and cities and also Atlantic Canada. Our remit is to attract European funding into the Northwest area for digital transformation activities. We currently have 11 core members in the network, and we work with 150 plus other regions, and we have 9 staff located in the ERNACT headquarters in Colab on the grounds of ATU in Letterkenny. Next slide, please. So this, you can see there in the presentation, just the core ERNACT members. So as well as the 2 councils in the Northwest area, there's Hof University in Germany, We've got the region of South Ostrobothnia and Finland. We have the Association of Local Authorities in Västernorrland, which is based in mid-Sweden, the Government of Cantabria, Nièvre Numérique, which is in the region of Nevers in France, the Government of Newfoundland and Labrador are also a member, the Western Region Romania, the University of Ljubljana, based in Slovenia, and Udrys na Gaelta, which is the Gaeltacht Authority for Ireland as well. Next slide, please. So you can see up there that where our core members are located, and the smaller blue dots are also there, the other regions that we also work with on current projects as well and where they're located. We've currently have 17 live projects with a value of 43.9 million euro. 14 million euro of that is in the earmarked for the Northwest area. We're working with 26 countries on those projects, 45 regions and cities, and 70 plus organisations. Next slide, please. So our approach, so we have an approach that we undertake in order to, I suppose, attract funding and work with the other regions. So we align with the regional smart specialisation priorities of the different regions that we work with. We facilitate knowledge exchange and best practice among the partner members. We work to promote collaboration between public authorities, universities and industry within the European regions and Atlantic Canada. We develop joint funding proposals to connect the different territories that are members. And then if successful, we manage and we support those international cooperation projects. Then we share and disseminate expertise between the partners, and also implement pilot digital projects within the different regions and contribute to EU policy development in ICT and regional development areas. Next slide, please. So this is some recent initiatives in Derry City and Strabane District Council area that some of you may be aware of. So I suppose the most recent is Peace Air. It's a Peace Plus project. It's just been approved and it kicked off on the 1st of September. And it's a cooperation of 10 different partners across the whole island of Ireland. It includes Derry City and Strabane District Council, Donegal County Council, ABC Council, and a number of different universities, including Ulster University, Queen's, University College Cork, University of Galway, Trinity in Dublin, TU Dublin, and University of Galway. And the aim of that is to improve air pollution in the Peace Plus programme area. So there's a number of initiatives there to roll out sensors and deploy them in the Northwest cross-border area to measure air pollution and help to improve air pollution. There's citizen science initiatives and various other upskilling of health practitioners so that they can include air pollution training and whatever in their clinical work and things like that. So that's just recently started at 6.5 million euro as the total funding. Then we recently, a project that's just finished is Tide, and that developed a number of virtual reality pilots. Some of them that you might be aware of that are working in the Tower Museum are Afloat on the Shore, The Enemy Below, and Island City. So that was 3 virtual reality experiences that were developed, and they're located on the Tower Museum at the minute. We also have the Improve project that's finished as well, and that provided funding towards the development of the website for the local development plan. Enabler has provided funding for artificial intelligence capacity building for public sector officials. Evergreen, that developed a recycling app for Derry City and Strabane District Council area called RIA, and a chatbot and a website. And so it enabled people working in the call centre for recycling to that people were able to contact the chatbot or the app and ask questions like, when's my bin going to be lifted, what I put under the blue bin, things like that there. And it freed up their time, I think it was by 75% or something. It reduced the calls coming into the contact centre. Safer, there was that provided funding for oyster harvesting inspection application as well on Lough Foyle to digitalise that there. Then we had EU intelligence studies that's just recently finished, and that was where that happened. We were able to make a case to the European Commission that Derry City and Strabane District Council area should be included in that project because they were part of the Northwest City region. And so we made that case after Brexit, and they accepted it. And so Derry City and Strabane District Council were able to participate in that project. And there was a pilot initiative rolled out in Strabane Positive Energy District, a local Green Deal within that project. And there was also mentoring provided as well to the people that were working on that from the European Commission. Then the Clean project, that provided funding for a low carbon baseline analysis. It was the first low carbon baseline analysis in the Northwest cross-border area, and it helped during the development of the Northwest Regional Energy Strategy to set the baseline and be able to set targets. Then other projects, Secure and Smartic, so they provided money for solar PV, battery storage, an upgrade of the building management system in the council area and things like that there as well. And also then there was digital transformation training for SMEs and one-to-one mentoring and things like that there provided through the Devise project. So they're the more kind of recent projects that we've been involved in that have provided funding for the Derry City and Strabane Council area. Next slide, please. So some future opportunities. I probably need my glasses to see all of this, but there's a number of, so we're currently pursuing a legal instrument to, thank you, to convert ERNACT into, ERNACT is currently an EEIG, which is a European Economic Interest Grouping, and we're pursuing an avenue, a legal instrument to convert it to an EGTC, which is a European grouping of territorial cooperation. And that's where you can have a partner from a non-EU member state, like Derry City and Strabane District Council area. And that's to enable them to take part in European cooperation opportunities. We're also actively looking at access to how we can enable this council area to access EU funding and innovation programmes through, for example, Horizon Europe, where the UK and Northern Ireland can still take part, and also through Erasmus Plus and things like that. Also, there's the opportunity for digital transformation and knowledge exchange with all our core members, the existing core members. It also provides Derry and Strabane Council area with an a platform to for international visibility and to develop strategic partnerships and influence as well. We have a digital hubs project. It's submitted to Peace Plus. We'll hear in the next month about that, and that is to upgrade 6 digital hubs in the Northern Ireland side of the border, and to provide learning and expertise from existing digital hubs in Donegal. So we have hubs in 6 rural areas of the Derry City and Strabane District Council area. So they include Eglinton, Park, Newton Stewart, Castledare, Strabane, and I can't remember where the other one is now. But so those hubs, that will provide funding to create those hubs and provide mentoring to the staff, and green retrofitting and digital transformation mentoring for the SMEs in those rural areas and things. Then there's also opportunities for AI, artificial intelligence, and advanced human AI collaboration. There's a number of circular economy and resource efficiency initiatives that we're looking at as well at the minute. Green transitions and digital twin technologies, smart energy, clean energy transition. So Peace Air, the project I spoke about at the minute, is providing 6.5 million funding for improving air pollution. And then Industry 5.0 technologies and digital health and tech-enabled care as well. So that's the type of future opportunities that they are for Derry City and Strabane Council area being involved in the AirNac network. Next slide. I think that's everything. Yeah, that's everything. So if anybody has any questions. Okay.
Thank you, Katrina, for that update. You've been very busy over the past year, and you've got a full plate going forward as well. So I'm going to open it up to the committee to see, does anybody have any questions or comments? So the first indicated speaker is Councillor Hart. Brian?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the presentation and update, Katrina. AirNac, I see, is an essential and integral part in the overall cross-border strategy for enhancing digital technology for the Northwest region. It forms now one of many strategies that we are seeing coming to fruition in relation to the Northwest region. And you mentioned digital hubs there for the rural areas, and I think it's really important, and it gives people an opportunity from the outlying areas to whether to participate in digital technologies through their work, or entrepreneurs and things like that. So it's a relative small investment from the council when we see, what returns what we're getting. So I don't really have any questions as such, but I just want to commend you on the great work that you're doing. So thank you.
Councillor Mooney. Sean?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Katrina, for the presentation. It's very helpful and insightful. Just when you were going through it there, obviously, I remember the paper coming through our governance committee about the transition from the legal instrument to the new one, because obviously there was an impact, I suppose, in Brexit and how it sort of, developed and played out relationships between our council and, across the border. But you did say there was a transition from the EIG to the EGTC. Have you any update on that at the moment now? Because we haven't had any further papers relating to that, but obviously there'll be keen interest to see how that's progressing and how that will obviously play out for AirNac, because it is important that you do be able to access more funding, especially from the European sites, given the impact that Brexit has had on this relationship and our relationship with the Northwest and throughout Europe. But I'd be happy to have you any progress or any update on that, Ellie. Thank you, Katrina.
Yeah. So at the minute, so it's been, it's gone through both councils, as you say, and they have approved to go forward with that. And we're working with the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform in the Republic of Ireland, and they're the person that is responsible for EGTCs in the Republic of Ireland. So they're been very supportive and very helpful in developing the convention and the statutes and all the documents that are necessary. I've also met a number of times with the Committee of Regions, who are also very supportive of it and as well. So what we have to do now, I suppose, it has to be approved, where we've been assured that it would be approved on the Republic of Ireland side, and that the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform would definitely back it. We just have to get it approved on the UK side. So I suppose the Department of Foreign Affairs is also aware, and so we just have to wait until hopefully the UK would approve it.
Given what you said at the end there, obviously, about the what's happening in Dublin, you did say probably that you'll need assistance from the UK side. Is there anything this council can do to assist you in that process? Because obviously it's important that you get this process, approved. But just if you've any thoughts of what our council could do to try and maybe move that on with the authorities in London. Thank you, Katrina.
If each party, I suppose, could talk to their, the relevant ministers in Stormont and whatever, and just make them aware of it and how essential it is to this area, especially with us being a member of the Peace Plus programme area and that, yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mooney, and thank you, Katrina. We have one final indicated speaker. It's Alderman Cook, Chelsea.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me in, and thanks to Katrina for her presentation. like Councillor Hart, the outreach to the rural communities is very, very important. I don't really have much to say. I think Katrina kind of covered everything. So I just want to thank her again and just keep continuing the great work that you are doing through your Act. So thank you very much.
I have two more speakers, Councillor Hart and then Councillor Mooney.
I was just going to say we could propose writing to the Minister to see if they could assist in that matter.
I have a feeling Councillor Mooney is going to say something similar.
Just happy to second that proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Well, that's great, Katrina. So we as a committee have committed to writing to the Economy Minister to chase that up, and if they can make representations to the relevant UK Minister, that'll be really, really helpful. So thank you for your time. It was really, really interesting.
Thanks very much.
All right. Cheers. And our next deputation is from DFC. So we have Mr. Ian Greenway and Mr. John Ball, who are from the culture section in the Department for Communities. They've come to speak to us about the crisis facing Echo. And they've come to update us as well on the Heritage, Culture and Creativity programme, which is currently being developed to agree a set of policies across various strands of DFC activity. So from the outset, these gentlemen are no strangers to this council. They've been here on numerous occasions. Everybody in this committee is going to be well aware of the issue with Echo, who have been in receipt of Arts Council funding for numerous years. The funding was removed this year in its entirety. And we've got a member from Echo here in the gallery as well. So we've had the discussion with the Arts Council. We understand that decision, a review was requested of it. The decision remains unchanged. We understand that Echo have submitted a submission to the Ombudsman to look at the processes involved within the Arts Council, where they adhere to, etc. And we understand that investigation is still ongoing. So it is an important issue for this city. It is an important issue for the arts and culture sector that across this city and district as well. So gentlemen, it's up to yourself in terms of what way you want to approach this, but the two items you're well aware of, the discussion points. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, Council. Just to introduce myself, I am John Ball. I'm Head of Culture Policy in the department. And you'll understand over the next couple of minutes what that actually means. I mean, it's a lovely title, but there's more to it than that. And we want to start this exercise just by putting some context around the work that's being done by the Minister currently around culture policy. And when we talk about culture policy, we mean across. So it's arts, it's around museum, it's around the department's responsibility for the historical environment, and it's about public libraries. So that's the context for it. We'll then be happy to take whatever and as many questions as you may have, either around this piece of work or things that might flow in and around it. So just to say that on the 3rd of July last year, Minister Lyons launched what we're calling the Heritage, Culture and Creativity Programme. The purpose of the programme is to address a long-standing policy void and to provide a comprehensive collection of culture and heritage-related policies, which up until now have been somewhat absent. In its initial phase, this programme will see the development, delivery of new policies focused on the arts, on the historic environment, on museums, and on public libraries. The policies are intended to focus on the fundamentals necessary to create a firm foundation to sustain and support the culture and historic environments sectors, and to develop the contribution they already make across key executive priorities, department objectives, and to the quality of life of people in Northern Ireland. The approach in the programme gives each of the elements the status we think it merits, and provides each of the communities of interest with their own focus. So the option was to do one giant collective exercise, or to split these and link them in some way. We've opted for the second option. It brings a focus that's perhaps been missing until now on the contribution that these sectors already make across a very wide range of policy areas, and the great potential for them to bring their particular expertise and experience and creativity to do even more. In that regard, the programme's also intended to go some way to addressing the sense that's sometimes expressed to us by people working in these areas, that their work and their contribution is not and has not been properly valued by government. So since the programme launched last year, we have undertaken an extensive round of research and engagement and sought out and listened to informed experts across the sectors. In doing that, we've built on some really important work that was done by Rotha Johnson's Culture, Arts and Heritage Task Force a number of years ago coming out of COVID. So we didn't lose any of that expertise and engagement. We've actually built on it. Each of the councils have been involved in our round of engagement this year, and all the executive departments, and that approach to collaboration, that's the approach we will continue as we move through implementation and taking forward actions. So we reached a major milestone this July when the Minister published the framework document for the programme. That framework, which was sent to everybody, it's available on our website, and we're encourage people to read it, says some important things about the Minister's approach, viewpoint. It outlines the context, the purpose and the direction of the programme, and it includes a set of high-level policy aims for each policy, with some early indications of a number of programme-wide actions. And I'll say a tiniest bit more about that in a minute. The policy aims and the emerging actions, they've been identified through that engagement processes, through a review of evidence, and by assessing approaches elsewhere in our neighbouring jurisdictions. It's important to note that the framework is intended to be a precursor to a public consultation exercise, and that the aims and actions outlined in our draft until all the policy areas have been completed and been through full public consultation, full engagement and decisions by the Minister. The consultation phase we expect to commence this autumn. Now it is autumn. So I go out on a limb and say at the end of this month, we would expect to have a draft ready almost to go out to the public on public libraries. We will take them and we will phase these so they don't all hit at the same time. But each of the policies will have their own separate consultation process. Once the policies are finalised, and to recognise the many commonalities and interdependencies across the 4 subject areas, we'll publish a collective action plan. We expect that to happen across the spring. It gives us time for 3 months public consultation to consider the responses received, to do some work in finalising policies and then have them out in time for next July. So we're aiming for the spring. The action plan will form the basis for managing the delivery across the programme and reporting and indeed accountability for our actions. We think it's worth making the point that while the work within this programme will not in itself deal with issues of budget, the evidence we're collecting and the new arguments that are being made will support, we believe, arguments for future funding of the sector, supporting and growing the budget. I mentioned actions. We've come across half a dozen actions emerging already in this process. What we expect to happen is through each of the policies, there'll be a number of sector-specific actions we'll identify, and we'll deal with those through time. You will see them as they emerge through the policymaking process, but there are 6 already obvious. The first of those deals with research and evidence. We're expecting and intending to develop an HCC research programme. So that's to explore factors including, importantly, economic value, but more than that, the assessment of social value. That sense that engagement, for example, in the arts, while you may not be able to put a pound sign or a euro value on it, makes a real intangible, so far uncounted, contribution to lots of social policy areas across education and health, mental health, well-being, all of those things. Our efforts around social value are to try and put a value on that, recognizing that it's not all just about the economic impact, though that is important. The second one is around skills. There's a clear need to develop for the culture sector a skills strategy. It's an important pillar when you consider the creative industries and the role they have across this in particular, but it's an important pillar of the economy. And we think there's a real need to assess current and future need and the potential means to meet that demand and the opportunities that are there to be grasped. We intend for it to cover all aspects of skills, and that runs from the governance of how to run a small grassroots organisation right through to, through volunteering to the development of professional skills, hire artists and technical support, etc. Looking at issues of what's perceived of the loss of talent, the opportunities for people to stay here, to work here, and to live here. We're also going to look at issues around funding sources and approaches. So that includes, of course, things around philanthropy, which we've experienced before, but looking for alternative sources within and beyond the public sector. And that will range across capital opportunities and core and programme funding. We think there's a real need for a capital strategy across the piece. And if you look at our heritage, look at any building, look around this building, look out any window in this building, and you will see in this city alone massive numbers of real architectural and heritage gems. Add to that the culture that goes on around it, the buildings and services, even across Derry. We think there's a missing link in our approach to capital demand, that we want to put together a programme that deals with things like the planned maintenance of important buildings that were built with public money, access issues for people with disabilities, health and safety issues, issues around the environment, and crucially, I think, with an eye to the future, a properly thought through, collaboratively designed capital project scheme that will allow us to work with partners, for example, councils or whomever else. And we think that's a really important part, not just in the arts, not just in culture sphere, but right across the historic environment as well. Collaboration and partnership, this is that sense that when you put interested, clever, talented, informed people in a room together, that they will work better together than they do independently, that the whole, it becomes stronger than the sum of the parts. We want to find ways of institutionalizing that opportunity for people who don't currently always have the opportunity to meet with peers or cross-fertilize ideas with people. We want to find a way to do that. Part of that actually will also include trying to encourage different aspects of the sector to band together, to work together, and even to engage with us, with the Arts Council, whomever their national development body is. So there's an important piece of work that looks, in one hand, soft, but actually it's crucially important, I think, to building the strength and supporting the sectors to kind of grow off each other. The sixth point is really one around the coincidence of doing all of these things. As we're looking at 10-year strategies, and that's what we're looking for, 10-year strategies with review after 5 years in each of these 4 really important areas, it struck us as a really important time to grasp the opportunity to look at how government actually supports, filters its money through to the sectors. So we will be undertaking a specific programme to look at funding structures and how we organise them. That will cover the Arts Council. It'll cover the Northern Ireland Museums Councils, which on paper and nominally do similar jobs, but actually have a completely different constitution and a different way of working. And importantly, it will include quite a bit of the work that the department actually does through the Historic Environment Division in terms of, well, the historic environment. So we think it's timely to do that. And we think HCC is the context that allows us to do that. It'll take some time to work that through. Anybody who's been through these processes with legislation, there's all sorts of engagements. So a considerable period of time. We don't have a prejudged outcome, but we think it's important to do. And broadly speaking, those are where we sit currently on the HCC programme.
So I'm going to open it up to the floor at this stage. Would anybody like to comment? Nobody whatsoever. Councillor Mooney, Sean.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks to Ian for coming down and John. I am in no way versatile in the arts or anything like that there, but I did have an opportunity to sort of read the documents and look over. I had one sort of reflection, and I thought was, and I don't know whether, because I'm conscious there's still the ongoing consultation process, and that'll feed into the no doubt into your decision making at some stage, or for the minister. But just the thought when you're speaking there, just occurred to me, the fact being that we hear so much about from the artists and the arts bodies, and we hear so much about them because and they reflect the view and the thought that they're undervalued because of the, obviously the lack of funding, or the reduced funding, or the funding hasn't get, up to speed with inflation. But in a way, and I'm using this adjective and don't take that out of any context, but lumping in arts along with heritage and public libraries, things like that there, does that not detract from the meaning of the arts sector itself, or from that actual body of people who produce arts? Because I can see where you've come along and said, listen, and what actually brought the notion to me was when you said you want to reinvest in old public buildings that maybe are dilapidated and you want to bring them back to life again. One thought came to me, Austin's here, just up the street, and probably the budget, I don't know, but the thought occurred to me, that would take a lot of money, and old buildings take a lot of money to bring back to life. Would that take away, would that reduce the amount of funding available to the arts community? Because I'm looking at one document here which I had sight of, you probably have it yourself, Arts Matter NI, and they do like a pretty comprehensive critique of the documents of the present HCC approach. And the thought really occurred to me was that, lumping this all together, does that detract from the major arts, funding and things like that there? But maybe you can let me know your thoughts. Thank you, Ian.
Councillor Mooney, 2 years ago we had this debate, exactly that debate. Right? We had come out of COVID, we had that Culture, Arts and Heritage Task Force review. Right? I know it's an issue of practicality. It is an area, and if you've read the framework, you'll see what the framework says. I think in stark terms, it reflects back what we have heard people say. And the minister said some things in that document that I suspect haven't been said as starkly in terms of funding and standing that haven't been said in the past. Our view on creating the structure was we knew there is no arts policy. Right? There hasn't been one. There is no executive and as far as we can understand for quite some time, policy on the historic environment. The policies on public libraries and on museums go back quite a number of years. Those 4 things needed done, right? Just out of good governance, good housekeeping, even without them being crucially important, they needed done. So the notion with HCC was, broadly speaking, you couldn't do one without the other. You couldn't give one a higher priority. One of the issues around doing these policies, and they are quite labour intensive, is one around resource. It is getting people in the everyday job, and in their everyday job, when you're dealing with day-to-day things, it can be quite hard to deal with the policy, the setting up, the ideas, the thinking for the future. So at a practical point of view, we created a team, and the team's view, a team that I now lead, the team's view was you couldn't really stand one over the other. You had to give them their standing, because to the communities of interest, local museums are as important to people who are in the community of interest of local museums as the arts are to artists. I mean, that's just fair. It doesn't mean they're just interested in, they're interested in all of those things. It's the nature of culture that you tend to be interested across the piece. But from a practical point of view, you couldn't do one without the other. And you had to give respect and standing to each of them. So rather than focus on one, we opted to do the 4 at the same time, to treat them separately, but connect them. So you've got the same people. We're going through a similar structure. We're talking to different people, but about different things. And we will bring them together, because the connections, as you say, you give the example of, buildings being put, Austin's in particular, but Austin's isn't the only one by any stretch of the imagination. More and more, if you look at Bangor Courthouse, it's a heritage building being put in that instance to a really strong culture and arts use. Those commonalities, you'll find them right the way across these 4 sectors. So it was really difficult to carve them up. The conclusion we came to is that the best approach for us was to do the 4 simultaneously, individually, but we'll argue the strengths of each within each. And where there's commonality, it makes more sense to do work together in common. So we could have done it a different way. I don't think it will act at the loss of one sector over another. I think actually doing the 4 of them together in the way we have them in a programme allows us to do all sorts of things in terms of building, for example, around capital, making stronger arguments given the scale of the task. And I think Ian might want to say something specific about Austin's, perhaps.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Councillor Mooney. I think it is fair to say, and John's intimated, that there is a synergy between heritage buildings and arts venues. If we just, in our mind's eye, walk around the walls here of Verbal Arts Centre, the Cathedral School's being brought into use as a circus school, the Playhouse, that's one quadrant of the walls here. Austin's sitting in the middle, now in the ownership of the Inner City Trust. And I think that is the most remarkable organisation. And Damien McAteer and Helen Quigley are two of the most remarkable, I will call them public servants, although they're not on the government payroll, so to speak, at thinking how to shape places in a way that is sustainable, both in carbon sustainable and economic sustainable, and how move this, do that. And Damien has the ideas, and Helen is his translation down to earth of his ideas. And I think we will see something very positive happening with Austin's that will show how once one puts a use together, how that can ripple out in regeneration effects. While we do have to, and I said it in this chamber last year, we have to think, have we got the right number of things in the right configuration in the right places? Because buildings tend to lock you into a place for decades. There's a real strength in that. There can be a challenge in that. And Foyle Street Library is in need of major upheaval, refurbishment, whereas Craigan, which I went to last year, a smallish amount of money has made a transformation to the library there. I was in Ballymoney Museum at lunchtime today. It's tired and it looks its age. I was in Benavon Arts Centre in Cookstown last week. Ditto. So there is a significant piece there. We can't ignore that as across museums, libraries, arts and heritage as well. But I think, like John says, by doing these things together, we can draw across from them while giving each of them their rightful place.
Thanks for the for coming back on that. Hopefully it didn't come across as being negative. It's just more the fact is that certainly I can see the point now that this process could be maybe considered a sort of consolidation process, where in the past you had ad hoc policies dealing with different aspects of what is Janine umbrella termed the arts. But I can see obviously the complementarity between arts bodies, museums and places of public interest that are really important because they form part of that infrastructure and part of the suite of infrastructure that would be on that umbrella term. But definitely you'll probably have a lot of reports coming through and people sharing your views from different perspectives and bodies, which will form presumably the minister's thinking down the line. But just one passing remark will be just hopefully that the minister can find enough money to fund this properly and keep everybody happy as such. But maybe that'll never happen. But that would be my sort of hope anyway. But thank you for your presentation. Thanks very much. That's
Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in, and thank you, John and Ian, for coming today. We really appreciate it. And look, the work that's being done around arts, environment, public libraries and museums is really, really important. And I appreciate the detail that you've just given us, even having an idea what Central Library needs. That's actually important, because often we can feel a sense of neglect here in Derry, that there's not enough eyes on the state of things here, and it's good to have people with a bit of a grasp of that. So the key things will be, I think an overarching plan will be great, but it's going to require funding, and we're going to need regional balance as well. So those would be the two guiding for this to be effective. For this work that you are doing to be effective, it is going to require funding and regional equality as well. And it'll also need, which would mean that, I hope that the DFC will continue to fund us after listening to some commentary today. But I do want to move us to the discussion about Echo, because that is a very pressing issue, because that involves arts, that involves a building that has had a lot of public investment. It involves the environment of the city, and it involves a workforce, and also it also involves provision of dance to the city and the district as well. So I'm really eager to try and get your views on this, because we were I think that the council, the city, obviously the staff at Echo, and everybody that used the services there was left devastated by the announcement of the funding cut. I think that the Echo board has done absolutely everything in its ability to campaign to make its case, to say what has been said about us isn't true, and to gather up allies and to gather up support for the work that they've done. But unfortunately right now, despite all that great campaign work, despite all those great efforts, I mean, the place is closing down and people are facing redundancy. Things are being stacked in the building to get ready to be moved out. And the only thing that will turn this around right now is if there is an intervention from the department. And I think that some of the figures involved that would allow that to happen have been given to yourselves. But that is this has had a bit of it's been a dark cloud, I think, in the city and the district, and it's had a huge impact on the discussions in the arts sector since this announcement was made. So Obviously, we would love to hear good news, but I think that we would really appreciate your views on what's happening, what can be done. Is there anything that can be done to save Echo? And I don't want to be in a position of creating false hope for people who are devastated and frustrated. But I appreciate that's in part why you're here today, and I would love to get an update on that.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. And we wanted to work from the policy work because you've identified rightly the need for funding. And John mentioned we haven't managed fully to get as much traction in the past for these areas in terms of the benefits they bring to health and therefore funding within the health system, the benefits they bring to education, the benefits they bring to the justice system, and so on. So the research and everything become really important because we feel there are a lot of facts there, but they're not landing. So how do we do that? And I just want to pick up, I will come to Echo, the regional balance point that is in the framework, not in the summary paper that we provided for today. The need for balance, the need for rural as well as urban, and the need to reach, I'm paraphrasing it, the hard to reach, those that traditionally are not reached. And Arts Council managed to find some money towards a scheme specifically focused on the quote hard to reach, because we know that is particularly challenging, and there was a grant scheme that has closed and decisions we made this week on that. In terms of Echo, yes, all Arts Council's decisions are made in the context of that funding challenge. And we are where we are on that. Minister Lyons has worked hard. He's found some extra money, persuaded his executive colleagues to find some extra money. He aspires and intends to do more on that front, and the evidence and the research and the skills and all of that stuff will assist. I came to meet Steve and his board and staff and Grace, your colleague, and 2 MLAs, I think about 3 weeks ago now, and had the best part of 3 hours with them, which was a thorough, exhaustive and courteous discussion. And I learned a good deal. I'd read a range of papers that Steve sent me before I came. There is a case with the Ombudsman that is in what they call stage 2, which is the investigation having completed the validations. Things move at their pace. It is important they do this thoroughly. It does not naturally chime with timescales that Echo find themselves in. I made a commitment to see what options there were, and I think Steve has put that out. I put a note to all councillors explaining where we've got to. He and I have had a further exchange of correspondence since then, and there is active discussions involving District Council officers and Arts Council about what, if anything, can be done, recognising these timescales, and there are further discussions later this week, as I understand it. The department is playing a role in those, but we believe that the lead sits with the District Council and City and District Council and the Arts Council. And we're seeing what is possible. Again, I'm not in a position to be able to make promises here, but I do believe there is a recognition of the dance provision in the Northwest as being pivotal in all of this, and the discussions are going on in that light.
Councillor Anelis, Grace.
Right, and thank you very much, Ian and John, for coming in today. And I know that myself and Ian had met with Echo, and I really respected everything you said that day. And from somebody who works in the arts, cultural and heritage sector myself, I am really, it feels like there's a light bulb moment within, the department that, there's this recognition and this realization that the importance of heritage and culture and creativity within communities, within health, within every aspect of life. And, going from the papers that are in front of us, there, everything that has been being said within, the community, the arts and culture and heritage community, it's all on there. So it is really inspiring. And really hopeful that we are going in the right direction. And finally, there will be this real, tangible, evidence-based need for funding for arts, culture and heritage based on what you're planning to do. I do have a couple of questions. One of them would be in and around the public consultation in autumn. I'm just wondering, where are they going to be and how many of them is there going to be? Because I think it's important that we reach as many sectors in the community as we can with this. And then the other one would be in and around the I suppose you probably don't actually have an answer for this at the minute, but in and around the idea of assessing social value. You can assess economic impact, that's fine, but the social value is something that like, you know, heritage and cultural organizations, they struggle to put you know, a figure on the change it makes to people's lives. I'm working on a project and it's funded by the PHA, the CLEAR project, and it's health and heritage. And we have a broad kind of way to assess that. So I'm just kind of wondering what the plan is to sort of put that, put those figures on social value. But like generally for me, I see the uplift and quality of life when you're connected to your place, when you feel that, you know, sense of home and that sense of pride in your heritage and, you know, in that creativity and, you know, the idea that, you know, creating pieces of art for your home or creating something yourself and, you know, that sense of pride, it goes beyond anything that a doctor can prescribe you. And in my own workplace, we would be people would be sent to us through social prescribing, you know, for health and mental well-being benefits. So I get it. I am really, really hopeful of the way it's going forward. I think the recognition that the work and contribution of that sector have not been valued up until this point is really important. I also really understand the need for collaboration and for organisations to work together. And it has been happening for years. You know, I have been part of the Built Heritage Fund that was through the council, and then obviously through the co-delivery group ourselves, you know, like we have been collaborating. You know, there are really, really strong groups on the ground that have been working together for a long time because we've been shouting into, you know, this sort of like cave, you know, crying out, trying to explain how important all of this is. So you'll find those collaborations easy, you know, and just to work and sort of like give them the support they need. But absolutely agree with everything you're doing, and I'm really, really hopeful that going forward, that all the keywords that are said in that plan, they're all met, and they're not just you know, sort of like empty papers, really. Thank you.
Thanks. It is gratifying to hear you say that. The truth is what we've done in the department, without being too self-critical of the past, what we've done in the department over the last couple of years is listen. It has been an exercise of going to see people, drinking massive amounts of tea with people, building relationships, asking them what they think, because the truth is, as in most walks of life, the people who do the thing are actually the experts in it. So if we're reflecting, you know, the sector, the view of experts, it's because we're listening to the experts. So I mean, it's gratifying to hear that that's been picked up. In terms specifically of the public consultation, we're building on the consultation that was done, the sector consultation certainly that was done by the Culture, Arts and Heritage Task Force a couple of years ago. We have done a range of our own, which is why the documents, and I assure you they are, the intent behind them isn't just to repeat parrot words, it is to translate that into actions. And that's driven by the intent from day one of the Minister, which has been a massive importance in driving this forward. What we will do over the coming months, the model for public consultations in a policy of this nature is, broadly speaking, online, using citizen space, that we will put out a document. Those of you who have seen the framework, have read the framework, will see within it, for each of the policy areas, we have developed policy aims. They're largely motherhood and apple pie. They are why we think, based on engagement, we think these are important reasons to support the sectors. They form the basis of what will become the consultation exercises. We'll produce a document. It'll be online. It'll be for anybody to contribute who wants to. They'll be able to contribute through Citizen Space, which is a very well established and very straightforward process for engagement. But people can write. They can do it on paper. If there's massive demand, we aren't currently planning to have a round of public meetings. But if there's demand, if people want it, there is a team of people who will come and speak. We were here a while ago with Steve and Oliver and the group that the council set up, Oliver Green, and happy to engage with the sectors across the piece. I mean, there'll be a 12-week consultation period, but anytime, frankly, anytime we are very keen to engage, but we haven't planned a round of public meetings as such for each of those at this point. Ian, you wanted to say something about social value?
John touched on this in his remarks. Social value and economic impact are the two phrases we are using. They're not mutually incompatible. But on social value at the moment, we have our analytics colleagues, so our statisticians and economists, doing what I would call a desk review. They call it a rapid evidence review around heritage, culture, creativity and sport, which sits within the same part of the department as we do. As to what's already going on, what is being used, we know there are a number of tools. There is something called the social value engine, but that is a commercial tool, but black box, you put things in and a number comes out the bottom. There is a view that probably we need to go a little up the sophistication scale without trying to put a supercomputer on this. We're also aware sport is probably a little ahead of arts and culture in this. There is a model being developed by the UK government, by Sport England, by Sheffield Hallam, that looks at community value, it's called, in that case, for sport. I know that Aurora in Bangor has a social value of £4 million, for instance. There's also models that certain sports have done. UEFA has done one for football clubs, for instance. But we are very conscious what we don't want to do. There was talk earlier, a couple of councillors were talking about collaboration. What we don't want to do is have everybody trying to outcompete each other by using different models across not just sport and culture, but dance against visual art, against Gaelic sport, against judo or whatever. We want to make sure there's some commonality of model here so we can use this data, A, with confidence, but B, without poking each other in the eye. So that work is going on. John is trying to G up our analytics colleagues a little whilst respecting their need for thoroughness and due diligence to see how we can move from a desk piece of work towards the next stage, towards some form of model which we can populate. In parallel, we are working on what data we have already. So Thrive, Audience NI as was, and Arts Council are working together on various statistics around what they're giving a generic heading of impact around, which is who is going to things in the arts world. Demographics, age, location, types of thing they're going, how frequently they are going. So we get a rich data set, which then helps inform all of this work. And I was talking to Arts Council last week, and they informed me, and I was not surprised at all, that the Northwest is slightly ahead of other areas of Northern Ireland in this work with Thrive, and has already been actively working with Thrive staff to pull the data together.
Next indicated speaker is Alderman Cook, Chelsea.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me in. And on behalf of the DUP, we would just like to thank John and Ian for coming along today. Heritage, culture and creativity are three very important parts of people's lives. So we very much so look forward to seeing the policy progress, and we would encourage the public consultation. Thank you.
And the final indicated speaker is Councillor McDade, Catherine.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Ian and John, for coming in. I think it's more just comments. I don't think there's a question in here, but I've just written lots down, so I'm just going to say it. I suppose on the first part around the policy, John, it was really good to hear you talk about the contribution that's already being made. So it's good to acknowledge that and hear that being said from the department, because we know it and we hear it, and we hear it from the service users as well as the artists. So it's really good just for everyone to keep hearing that as well, because that contribution is huge. So I suppose, like, as a council, that baffles us whenever funding is removed. You know, we can never really understand it, because whenever you're talking about regional balance, and it's the buzzword, everyone's always talking about it, and yet the dance provision in the Northwest, and you've alluded to it whenever you've given us the update about Echo, you know, we need the funding, because we're not going to be able to provide the evidence and the contribution that we're given unless we have the funding to give it. It's a vicious cycle. I suppose even, I mean, the capital work strategy actually is, it's incredible. It's very ambitious. I really like the framework. It's nice, it's straightforward. It makes sense. It's an easy read. It's, you know, it pulls it all together. But I suppose a wee bit of the cynic in me, I'll just wait and see what the actual impact is whenever it's put into place. And again, if we're saying we need the research first, and the research hasn't even started, how long is this going to take, and who's going to be the minister, and what's going to be the priorities? And it's just, sometimes it just feels like it's lots and lots of policies. And we had someone in talking at a meeting last week too, and it was all about policy. And it's like, but what is the actual impact for people on the ground, and when are we going to see the impact? And that's the important bit. And the final bit was just around, it sounds like we're hopefully maybe going to have a bit of a short-term solution for Echo, which is great if we do have some sort of, and I know I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but if we do have a short-term stick and plaster for it, my concern just is the long-term funding for them, and the long-term kind of process for them. But no, thanks very much for coming in. And like I say, I can't wait to see what the impact will be, and hopefully it won't be too many years waiting to see it.
A couple of things out of that. You're absolutely right about the contribution being made. At no point in any of this have we, as administrators, kidded ourselves that we're kickstarting something, right? It's been there. And the process of meeting and engaging doesn't just include, you know, the major arts. And I'll talk about arts because my 4 or 5 years in this work is around arts. It's not just the big arts institutions you'll recognize from the newspapers, but it's the grassroots, and it's community level organizations. I mean, what's happening in Studio 2, not so far up the road, is frankly extraordinary. And unless you go and talk and see, you don't get to understand properly the contribution that organizations like Oliver Green's organization in that instance, but right across the country, those amateur grassroots community-driven organizations. I think in this exercise, one of the real benefits for us has been that appreciation of what's on the ground. In terms of moving to action, let's take the research piece. There's a need for more research, because there are always new aspects of disciplines that are viewed as making particular contributions, maybe in education or health. But there's plenty of research already in place. What we're trying to do is galvanize lots and lots of people who are doing lots and lots of work, trying to galvanize them essentially into a group to bring a focus to this, so that we don't have to make the arguments and reinvent them again in 5 years' time, that you've got a single place where all the owners of this information and the developers of this, you know, insight work in the same place. So it's there already. It's not being, that aspect is not being kicked down the road in the way that these things sometimes do. Before we finish writing the policies, in fact, before we finish writing the consultation documents for these policies, the same group of people are currently writing the outline for those 6 cross-program actions we talked about. We're thinking about how we do those properly and quickly. What's the best way to achieve a quick but effective goal, so we don't waste time on this? So I hope I can give you some assurance that we agree. I value your cynicism It's a good trait as long as it's tempered, and I'm delighted to see that it's somewhat tempered. But that I can assure you of our good faith and hard work in this. That stuff's ongoing, and will be held to account by the council and the likes of you, councillor, quite happily in the years to come.
I had previously said that Councillor McDaid was the final indicated speaker. Since then, I've had 3 other people. So if we can keep the final remarks very brief. So Councillor Anelis, Alderman Middleton, and then finally Councillor Harkin. So Grace.
Thanks. It's just to come back and say, in terms of the consultation, if it is possible, yeah, I definitely think a face-to-face, given the importance of this subject and the width of, what's the word, like competencies that it involves in terms of like the arts and culture, the heritage, the libraries. And I think it is really important that there are some face-to-face meetings on this, just so people know that it's happening and that people understand the process. So if that is possible, I think it would be beneficial for this council area. Thank you.
Alderman Middleton.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me in. Just to briefly state that on behalf of the DP, as we've previously stated, we are really thankful for you both for being here today, but also, as we previously stated, we remain supportive of Echo. We're really hopeful that a solution can be found, and we as a collective team are certainly here to help. Thank you.
And Councillor Harkin.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me in again. And I've got one for John and one for Ian. And again, thanks for coming today. Look, I think that, Ian, what you said there about listening to people, the last time you were down here and we had the meeting in the Whittaker Suite, I really felt you were listening to people and picking up people's views around a whole series of things. And that is very, very positive. And I think that's reflected today again in terms of like how we take care of our arts sector, our built environment, public libraries and museums. But in terms of the outcome, there has to be targets that is set by the department, by the minister, that then we can hold government to account on. And I think some of this has been, when we look at the anti-poverty strategy, huge amount of research, huge amount of work over many, many, many years, and no targets and a lot of frustration. So, and then we look at housing as well, where there is targets, but at least then they can be held to account. So I think that for this, there has to be measurable targets where we say we're going to do this in this time scale. So the framework's important, the policies are important, but we need actual targets where we can say, this is what we're going to get out of this, and this is what we can tell people is going to happen. Otherwise, it can feel like you're spinning your wheels and people engage in consultations and then get cynical about it because it doesn't then materialize. But I appreciate that you are very much listening, because that's been my experience with the number of engagements that we've had. And then for Ian, I just think, look, in terms of Echo represents in a lot of ways what you have described in terms of like bringing together lots of different things into one place, and it's been kind of dismantled, unfortunately, which is a bit of a disaster, because I think that in a lot of ways it's a model organization in terms of the many different things that it did and was doing, the many different audiences, the many different types of art engagement in terms of like, everything from children, 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds, right up to kind of like expert and very skilled. So we're having a discussion about how to advance that. And here we have an example of where it is unfortunately it's been undone. So I appreciate your saying that there's discussions happening between the council and the Arts Council. And we have kind of instructed our officers to do that, and I know that they're extremely willing to do that because we want to save Echo, because it is going to be a huge loss for the council area. But that I don't think that this will move forward in terms of Echo unless it's driven by the department at this point. I mean, as an escalated intervention, which is why I think it was so important that you came down and met with Steve and the board and representatives, but between the council and the Arts Council, we're not going to be able to figure out a plan to actually keep the doors open, and to ensure that everything, the expertise, the workforce, all that isn't lost, because there's just too long of a delay figuring out a plan. So I would just urge you to kind of we were saying as a council, and we said it when we've had meetings, that it is actually going to take dormant executive departmental intervention now at this point, because we have done everything we could. So that's why it's important you're here. That's why it's important that you're engaged in this discussion. But that, we're running out of time, because people are going to go and get new jobs. People are going because they've bills to pay to get new jobs. We don't know what's going to happen to the building. We don't know what's going to happen to the contents of the building. And so, again, just to repeat, I urge you to kind of lead the intervention, because that is the key thing right now.
Well, that's nearly it, gentlemen. I have two questions. One is specifically on Echo, and one is on the sort of wider regional balance piece. So in terms of Echo, we welcome your engagement to date. I note in your response that you said, the funding solution lies with Council and the Arts Council. Why do you feel that DFC is not part of that equation? And then in terms of the regional balance piece, you had already quoted that heritage, culture and creativity program. But the precursor to that was the investing in creative delivery. And we had a suite of recommendations from experts, and that was released in June 23. And regional balance was mentioned throughout that document in terms of actions or possible actions. And one in particular was to tackle investment disparity on a regional basis, including the Northwest. So we hope that any future policy direction has regional balance at its focus, because the current spend across all council areas in the north, Belfast gets 81% of the funding, we get 11%. We don't think that's fair. If this is to work, we need to see those figures shift, because it isn't fair to anybody in the north outside of Belfast that Belfast gets 81% of the funding. So that's going to be a key test moving forward. But I appreciate you coming today. I appreciate you being open and honest in terms of your answers and responses. But if you could just give us some flavour of why can DFC not be part of the funding solution currently for Echo, and is regional balance a key priority? Will it be a key focus in this new plan? Thank you.
Sorry, we were whispering amongst ourselves. Regional balance. There are a number of factors within this, right? Without getting into the percentages and all those things. There's a risk we get into an argument around a zero-sum game, which I think doesn't help anybody. Anybody who's read the framework will see what the Minister has said about the nature of arts funding in particular, but actually funding across the cultural sector over the last decade. Put two and two together on that, and you'll see that one of the solutions is making sure that we have the arguments that support public expenditure, greater funding, and the Minister said, has said in the Assembly his views around that very clearly. One of the other things that comes out very clearly is the issue around postcodes. That creativity, talent, interest, opportunity, there's no research that indicates that that is based on postcodes. So for the Minister and for this policy, one of the crucial pieces in that is around equality of opportunity, and that's equality of opportunity to take part, to participate. And that in itself goes to the heart of the regional piece. Wherever they live, people should have an expectation of support and access, and whether that's through, executive funds or council investment or wherever that funding comes, there's a crucial underpinning is about the equality of opportunity for people to participate. And I mean, as much as I could say around the importance, the value of, some form of regional distribution that takes account of the people and the place and the opportunities and the demands, without getting into, another debate around the statistics, the current statistics. But I can tell you that Nuri and Armagh raise an eyebrow around the statistics as well, and not just Nuri or Armagh. Fermanagh would have a word with us, I think, quietly as well around that. But just beware the perception. But it is a really important factor in terms of developing a fair policy that operates across the piece.
And to come to your other point, Chair, and indeed a point that Councillor Harkin made a few moments ago, I could sit here and quote various technical reasons to do with partnership agreements and the wording of the Arts Council Order 1995 and various other things about why the lead sits with the City and District Council and the Arts Council. I'm not one, John will know, to overly worry about where lines are drawn on pieces of paper. What I do commit is that the department has not withdrawn and will not withdraw from these discussions. I do believe, for the reasons of those pieces of paper, it's appropriate that the City Council and the Arts Council are in the lead, and both of those have put some money into Echo in this financial year, not to the extent that was sought in one case. But the department will be very much, when there are some discussions later this week, the department will be present, as well as the Arts Council and the City and District Council.
Thank you, Ian and John. And I think Aileen is going to provide a further contribution.
So I just wanted to give a quick update to members. You'll know after the last meeting, you asked us to engage with the Arts Council, which we did. I have some correspondence which I'm happy to share with you as members, but just to be clear, I suppose they were clear with us that they stood over their decision. They also, reiterated some of the comments that they'd made previously. Now, we did push them. We did ask them to meet with us and indeed to engage with Echo and the wider sector. They were clear with us that they would probably be unable to do that with the ongoing challenge to the Ombudsman. So what we did push them and said, look, we think it would be, our members have asked us to have those discussions, and particularly around, how to preserve if ultimately they're not going to be able to preserve Echo, we wanted to make sure that they were engaged with us around exploring all those options and to ensure then that at least the assets, the staff, some of the resources of Echo were preserved for the wider sector, and in particular the building. So that meeting is scheduled, and the department have agreed to join those meetings. So I suppose that was our endorsement from yourselves last month, which we are happy to pursue. I suppose it is on that basis, and that's what we're going to do later in the week. What the outcome of that is, I'm not sure, but we will be reporting back to you. But I just wanted to be clear about our involvement in that, and what we're, that we have written to them, we have engaged with the Arts Council on that. So we are hopeful that there'll be productive discussions, how much we can get into the detail of the particular case with them. I am not sure, but I'm hoping that the department will be able to support those discussions as well.
Thanks for that, Aileen. And the very last speaker is Alderman Guy.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. And thanks to Ian and John for that presentation. I missed most of it because I was working, I was late. But seemed to be very positive what everybody says here. Anyway, I just want to draw you back to what you were saying about Studio 2 and the great work that they do there. And they've had funding cut, good relations funding, and they do a remarkable job down there in Studio 2. We work with primary schools and other schools right across the city and district. I'm sure a lot of councillors in this room, who are city-based especially, will agree with me that the rise in sectarian tensions within the city on both sides through young people who shouldn't be experiencing them sectarian attitudes is on the rise, sadly on the rise, through social media and other outlets, with ones goading each other and they outdoing one another. So I would ask the department to seriously consider the cuts that they have made to Studio 2 in their good relations funding. Okay.
I think it's a different, it's the executive office is responsible for good relations, not the EFC.
Department for Communities don't deal with that at all, no? No, my apologies then, my apologies. I thought that you went for community,
But John did go to Studio 2 for what he thought was an hour and a half last week and had 4 hours there.
Oh, that's good. No, that's good. At least these are taking it on board. Maybe you could have a word with the executive office for us.
That's us. Don?
Sorry, Chair. I think Oliver was preparing to have probably more than a word with the executive office. No offence to Oliver.
So, gentlemen, that's us. Don, really thank you for your attendance. And as always, you're always welcome back.
Thank
you. So we'll move on to the body of the meeting. Chair's business, I've only had one member contact me. It's Councillor Hutton. Aisling.
Thank you, Chair. And I suppose I just wanted to, and our party wanted to take this opportunity to extend our heartfelt congratulations to everybody that was involved in the success of this year's Derry Half Marathon. The event was fantastic. It was a real showcase of community spirit, athletic achievement, and I suppose it showed the very best of what our city has to offer. So from the organisers and the volunteers to the runners and the supporters who lined the streets, your efforts made this event truly special. Everything was buzzing. Myself and my family had an absolutely lovely morning out, except for the downpour at about 12 o'clock. So a sincere thanks goes to all the organisers, volunteers, sponsors, emergency services and our council team who were there with smiles on their faces from start to finish, supporting everybody that come into contact with them. Your hard work and commitment ensured a safe, enjoyable and a very inspiring day for everybody, Jacqueline, I must say. So to the participants, whether you were chasing a personal best or running your first half marathon, your energy and enthusiasm brought life to our streets and pride to our city. You certainly inspired me. So it was great too to see people of all ages and backgrounds that were coming together in such a positive and uplifting way. So events like this do promote health and well-being. They do promote tourism and civic pride across our city and district. So well done to you all, and I look forward to supporting the continued growth and success of the Derry Half Marathon in the years ahead. And I hope to see more members maybe taking part in the years ahead. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hutton. I visited Edmonton on Sunday. When I left the house, the sun was shining. When I got down there, I was like a drowned rat. But it was just amazing. The crowds that were there in that weather, supporting friends and family members, competing in the Waterside Half Marathon. It just shows real community spirit. And that's something we should be proud of. So we have two more indicated speakers, Alderman Middleton and then Councillor Mooney.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. I just wanted to concur with all of Councillor Hutton's comments. Warm congratulations to all on behalf of the DUP. Thank you.
Councillor Mooney.
Thank you, Chair. I just obviously endorse what Councillor Hutton said there. It's an amazing event. Somebody who's been a previous participant in it, and unfortunately I couldn't do it this year. I had to go to Belfast, but I have to declare an interest. My son and the two of his friends ran the relay and they came first in the relay. So happy about that anyway, but that should be a declaration. But he's well chuffed anyway. But to all, a lot of people I know ran it this year, and it's an amazing event. It's a great, there's been various changes of course over the years, but this seems to be a good course now, settled course, and Obviously, the finishing area is a joy for everybody, and well done to the council, and well done to all the participants, and especially all the runners who took part in whatever form. It's a great day for them, and the numbers this year was fantastic. Over 3,000. Can't beat that. It's on the rise, and hopefully it gets bigger and better. Thank you, Yummy Jacqueline, and thank you to the officers who now put on another great performance. Thank you.
Well done, Milan. Well done, Jacqueline. Right, so item 7 is matters arising from July's meeting. So would anybody like to discuss any items? So Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Chair. It's BC 129/25. And in regards to Palestine, I just wanted to mention that there is a long march happening this Saturday, organised by the Palestine Solidarity Group in Donegal and in Ashone. It's going to be starting at 7:30 a.m. at Bamba's Crown, the most northerly part of Ireland, and walking down to Buncranaga. And the significance of this is that that length almost exactly mirrors the length of Gaza. I want to commend the organisers, and it'll be a challenge for anybody that wants to do it, but people are encouraged to participate for whatever length they can. And it is keeping the focus on Gaza at a very, very crucial moment. The other thing that I wanted to mention, which impacts this committee more directly, the Business and Culture Committee, is the call now from the BDS movement for workplace stoppages on the weekend of September 18th to 21st of September. And the BDS movement is calling for workplace stoppages across Ireland. I went to a meeting that was led by Omar Barghouti, who representatives will have heard from in this chamber. And he was calling on workers, trade unions in Ireland to organise strikes on that date, and to also organise workplace boycotts of products that are complicit with genocide. And I think that this is very important, because we're at the point now where governments haven't listened. I read today that the British government has once again said that there isn't a genocide taking place in Gaza, which is absolutely shocking, and shows that we can't trust them, even when they say things that seem to be pointing in the direction of them acknowledging what's happening. But it is going to be up now to workers to disrupt business as usual if we're going to be able to build up the kind of pressure that's necessary to force governments to intervene and stop Israel from forcing 1 million people out of Gaza City. And look, the workers in Genoa and across Italy, the dock workers there, have said that they will strike in the coming weeks if the flotilla is interfered with, the global Samud flotilla that's on its way to Gaza with aid and to break the siege. So I think that we're at a pivotal moment. I would hope that this council would be supportive of the BDS actions that will be taking place in terms of work stoppages. I would hope that the Stormont Assembly and Stormont Executive would get behind this action rather than putting obstacles in its way. And I hope that there is a response to the call coming from Gaza trade unions, coming from the people of Gaza for work stoppages and boycotts. And again, the date of these actions is going to be September 18th to 21st. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hargan. Next indicated speaker is Councillor McDade.
Thank you, Chair. I actually didn't indicate. I must have scratched my nose or something, but it's all right. I'll speak on it anyway if you want me to. I mean, like normal in the chamber, you're going to know where I come from in this perspective. Of course, everyone is encouraged to go out, take part in the workplace action. I know across the city too, there is a Thursday kind of promotion as well, that on a Thursday at lunchtime, either businesses close for 15 minutes and people stand with them in solidarity, or just cash only, just to kind of try and create a bit of global disruption. I know that a lot of the solidarity groups are encouraging local businesses to take part in that as well. The long walk on Saturday I'm not sure whether Councillor Harkin mentioned it, but Donegal is the same length as Gaza. So that's the kind of the comparison. And although it's the same length, there's many, many, many more people in Gaza. So it's just to kind of highlight that. And people are being encouraged to do the full length. But if you can't come and do a mile, come and do 5 miles or come to the end. I think it's finishing in Buncrana. So come and kind of show the support. But everything we can do to continue to promote it, the better. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Hart.
We would, Sinn Féin would support and echo what the previous speakers have said. Last year Sinn Féin did a similar event. We walked and cycled from Castleair. I walked from Castleair to Ballymagary, and then there was a cycle from Ballymagary to Free Dairy Corner, and it was the length of the Gaza Strip. So anything that we can do to highlight and continue to highlight the plight of the people of Gaza, and we must do it. And I watch with interest the flotilla at the minute and the numbers involved. And we have a few people from Ireland that are there as well. So we hope they have a safe passage to Gaza. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. So we're going to move on to agenda item 8, which is the cultural grant aid programs. So we have Aileen to take us through that paper.
I'm just going to declare an interest so I'll leave the room, in fact.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this is a lengthy report, and thankfully Jacqueline is here with me to help deliver this report. I'm going to try and not read through it all. I'm going to try and pull out the pertinent points. Quite a bit of it is probably standard. You'll see there. This is we do, as you know, we do report to you annually to launch to get your approval to launch the cultural grant aid programs, which this is. Now, there are a number of changes that we're proposing for this year. So if you look through there and the purpose of the report, the Heritage Animation Visitor Servicing Programme is largely as was. So there are no significant changes probably to note there. You're asked again to approve, you will be asked to approve in principle continuation of the proposed subvention for one-off national events. Key thing to note in relation to that fund is that if there is no application that any money be redirected into, we're proposing that we redirect that into headline events fund. You're asked to note the delivery of the 3rd year for the Cultural Organisations Fund. Again, as you know, that's for 3 years, so there's no major changes there. In relation to the Access programme, members, you're asked to note that the Department for Communities have confirmed there is no budget to be allocated to the Access programme. There was none for this year, and there's unlikely to be one for the coming year. So we have issued successful applicants for this year were issued with a letter of offer in principle, and that was subject to match funding coming. In previous years, once the grant aid assessment process was completed, officers would have sought the external support with a 10% amount coming from council. But in the absence of DFC's match, there is no budget to fully fund that and no budget to significantly fund the Access and Inclusion programme. So it is proposed that we wouldn't, it's also worth noting that the majority of venues who have access audits have really drawn down almost as much of that funding as they can for the moment. So we are continuing discussions with DFC about that match being available, and we would bring back a further report on what we would do with the budget that's there to ring fence for the Access programme. So the key changes here that are proposed are in relation to the Community Festivals Fund and the Individual Artist Fund. So the Community Festivals process, we are proposing piloting a consensual grant-making process, which would see the delivery through the 8 local electoral areas and the local growth partnerships, the Community Festivals Fund. So you're also, this paper will also propose, I'll talk about the individual artist and the proposal for that. So you'll see there in the report, there's a summary of each of the each of their funds. The Community Festivals Fund traditionally enable local festivals to apply for up to 5 and from just over 5 to 10,000 to support community festivals. So officers have been consulting with the chairs of the 8 local community growth partnership boards and the neighbourhood renewal strategy managers on the consensual grant aid making model, with a view to piloting this consensual model for this fund. As you know, this is a similar model that has been rolled out in recent years by Community Services and by PCSP grant aid. So the budget for the coming year is expected to be £122,230. This allows for a contribution then of what is in and around just under £30,000 from the Department for Communities, and just over 92,500 from the festival and events budget. It's estimated that a yearly average of 35,600 for this budget would be, under the proposal for the consensual grant aid, would be allocated to more strategic focused large scale community or local festivals. So they are events that benefit a wider audience, and after consultation with the growth partnership boards, it was recommended that those strategic large-scale local festivals should continue to be eligible to apply for grant aid directly to council, and therefore it's proposing that these events would sit within a slightly revised headline events process, but with 2 amendments to that process to ensure they're eligible. So that would mean that in headline events, organisations can now apply for amounts below 10,000. However, they would no longer need to meet, below 100,000, that should read, however, they would no longer need to meet the criteria of a minimum spend of 50,000. This would change to a minimum spend of 10,000. Those organisations applying would be assessed against the other applicants in this category, and if organisations deem themselves eligible to apply within headlines, they would obviously not be able to apply through the consensual grant aid process. So officers recommend that the budget of 35,600 is awarded for large-scale local events within the headline process, and those applicants obviously that declare themselves eligible for that category compete within that category. Members, you'll know that last year in community festivals there was a separate Christmas fund that enabled applicants to apply for between £1,000 and £3,000. The Christmas fund last year in the last couple of years has prioritised an allocation based on DEA. It's proposed therefore that £3,000 be allocated to each of the DEAs for distribution through the consensual grant aid model, thereby approving the allocation of the 24,000 for Christmas events to the consensual grant aid. It is proposed, so it's proposed that the consensual model for community festival, including Christmas, would follow the principles that are adopted across council from Community Services and CSP. This would require each DEA to develop an action plan. It would then identify a lead partner who would call for expressions of interest in community and Christmas festivals. The events funding would then be allocated accordingly. The distribution of funding towards each growth partnership follows the principles of the percentage awarded through the community services model, considering population, deprivation and rurality. Each board would get an allocation based on the agreed formula. And the Appendix 1 sets out the proposed allocation based on the model, and there is also an action plan template that can be viewed in Appendix 2. But members, you will note that community festivals have been oversubscribed in the past number of years, with the number of groups exceeding the funding that was available. So it is hoped the consensual model would alleviate this, and it would encourage groups within each growth partnership to work together, deliver one agreed action plan to ensure the best outcomes for the area. It was also recommended through the consultation with the growth partnership boards and strategy managers that a 10% contribution be made for the administration of the award. To ensure that small independent sector groups are not overlooked, officers are going to be in contact with all of those who've applied for the community festivals, giving them details of the new process. If it's approved and it goes forward. The information would also give value to the 8 boards. It'll give them an insight to what was previously funded. And officers will work closely with the 8 boards to ensure there's alignment and there's no gaps in their action plan. So members, I suppose really the purpose of this report today is to get your endorsement of the consensual granted model. There is still some working to be done with some of the groups. And I would say that those discussions are ongoing. So there may be a requirement to bring back a further report, but I think today we're asking, I suppose, for your, in principle, your agreement to proceed with the consensual granted model, I suppose, subject to the agreement of the local growth partnership boards and the strategy, the neighbourhood renewal areas, so that if there's broad consensus among the groups, I think we're asking for members to endorse the process. The headline events fund, you'll note the amendment there to that in order to account for local events of scale, and it's recommended that applications be made for less than 100,000 through this process. Events must provide a minimum spend of 10,000. And obviously I've mentioned that they'll be ineligible. We've talked about the National Events Cultural Organisations Fund. In terms of individual artists, there's a proposal for an amendment to that. It's similar to the consensual granted model, but in summary, many of you will be familiar with the Arts and Culture Strategy and the Arts and Culture Co-Delivery Group, and indeed I know there's some members on the meeting today who are part of that group. So what we're proposing, you will be aware of this, is that effectively that the individual artist award is awarded as a consensual model, but that the Arts and Culture Co-Delivery Group effectively act in a similar way to the local growth partnership boards for individual artists. So it will give a strong role to the co-delivery group. It's recognised as a representative, inclusive structure for overseeing the strategy. The culture sector is well represented and are recruited by an open call to that group. So it's well placed to identify the sector needs and make recommendations. This pilot would embed a consensual model of decision making within the co-delivery group, identifying priority needs with a focus on individual artists and the cultural practitioner. So that's the proposal for the individual artist awards. Members, as with all our granted, there will be advertised in the local press, there will be information sessions, they will be assessed. Those that aren't consensual will be assessed by a trained panel of officers. The outcomes of the overall assessments will be brought to the Culture Members Working Group, where they will be taken through the process and the results in detail. The outcome then will be brought to this committee for a decision, with the applicants anonymised, with members asked to approve. Members should be asked at that stage, as you know, to approve the process and the overall awards. The consensual grant to aid completed action plans and awards will be reported back to you as members. And members, just you'll note that at any time you're welcome to see any aspect of the assessment process or related paperwork by way of a request to the Director or Head of Service. The budgets are from member approved rates-based budgets, and members, the recommendations are you approve the rollout of the granted programmes, approve the retention in full of the subvention programme for one-off national event, and note the proposal to reallocate if required. Note the delivery of the third year of cultural organisations. Note that the access programme for cultural organisations will not proceed in 26/7, and to award the sum of 110,630, the Community Festival consensual model, and to allocate 35,600 to large-scale local events under the headline events process, and approve the allocation of a 10% administrative allowance for the groups who administer the funding through the consensual model. And also, members, you're asked to approve the remaining 7,450 from the Artists and Cultural Practitioner Award to be allocated on a pilot consensual grant making model and established as a replacement for the existing individual Arts and Culture Practitioner Award grant aid programme. Members, happy to take any questions. I know that is a detailed, I suppose there's some detail in there and some complexities, which happy to take any questions. And as I say, if required, to bring back a more detailed report, particularly around the consensual funding model.
Thanks for reading that word for word, Aileen. So the only indicated speaker is Councillor McDade. Catherine?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Aileen. And actually, I would have preferred you to read it word for word because there's so much detail in it. It's hard to understand. But I suppose the consensual grant aid model works well. It's been working well within the community as it is. So I think it's a good thing to try it this way. We have to change the way we work, and I think I'm happy to propose the paper. Sorry. As long as we're able to give support to the groups who are going to be applying for funding, because there's going to be changes in the applications and changes in where they're applying and what they're needing to do. So as long as we're able to provide support to any groups that are applying for a new stream of funding or a different way, I'd be happy to propose it. And you might find that the co-delivery group will expand massively when they hear they have a wee bit more say in where where things are going to be spent as well. You can influx of offers to join it. But no, I'm happy to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Next indicated speaker is Alderman Middleton. Julie.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. Aidan, thank you so much for the report and for the time you've taken to give us a better understanding of it. Look, at this stage, the DEP are happy to welcome and endorse the proposed changes. We look forward to seeing the delivery roll out across our communities, and especially with larger scale events also. We're happy to see support there for individual artists as well. As we look to see these different components come together, I'm sure there'll be some exciting times, but as mentioned, I'm sure some groups might have confusion or questions or need just a wee bit of extra guidance, but I'm confident in the team that we have. Yous are wonderful, and I've heard from groups before about the support they've been given. So look, I'm happy to second if need be, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie. And the final indicated speaker is Councillor O'Neillis. Grace.
Rory, Aidan, see in terms of, sorry, I'm just bringing it up here on my screen, the individual artist and cultural practitioner award, I would be of the complete opposite opinion in terms of members wanting to join it, because would it mean then that anybody who is a part of the co-delivery group would have a conflict of interest when it comes to putting in an application for themselves as an individual artist? There are quite a lot of individual artists on that co-delivery group. So does that mean that it will put people off wanting to join it, or, you know, will they not be able to apply if they're on the co-delivery group and the co-delivery group are making the decision on who's getting the funding?
I think I mean, conflict of interest would obviously be managed in the same way as they've been managed with other groups. You know, there would be a number of the local growth partnership boards where there would be conflicts. I mean, there's conflicts, I suppose, that members here would manage. So I think the group would manage those conflicts. I don't think it would put them off. We're not talking, I suppose, about we're not talking probably about vast sums of money, but I don't think it will. I think the co-delivery group should be able to manage those.
So
but it's certainly something we would look at to see if it would put people off. Certainly the sector have been keen, and it was the co-delivery group that have been pushing for the opportunity to, you know, make a determination over how best to spend some of this balance. So some of the budget will still remain as direct application. This will be an award that would be able to be allocated by the co-delivery group. So I suppose the conflicts would be managed in the same way as they're managed elsewhere. But happy to take a look at that and talk to the group in further detail about it.
This is only a pilot, really, isn't it? So I mean, it's worth giving it a try. I'm just very conscious that, you know, there are quite a lot of individual artists in that group, and, you know, what if like 3 of them get it and then 2 of them don't, and they feel that they were as justified as the others to get it? And I'm just conscious about the harmony within the group as well. But if it is just a pilot, then it's, you know, if that's what the co-delivery group have said that they want to try, then 100%. But it's that would just be my one concern in terms of conflicts of interest when, you know, applying for the fund.
No, happy to note that. I say it is just a pilot, and those are the sort of things that we will be working through as part of the pilot. But yeah, conflicts will need to be managed carefully.
Thanks, Irene.
Okay, so no more indicated speakers. That was proposed by Councillor McDade and seconded by Alderman Middleton. Next item is item 9, which is the investment update, and we've got Kevin O'Connor to take us through that. Kevin.
Thanks, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to give you an update on the work of the investment service in the first quarter of this year and to seek endorsement for activities planned in 25-26. So members of this committee are well aware of the work that the investment team within council, the work that they do within council. In summary, basically, their role is to drive the promotion of the city and district and the wider Northwest City region as a business location. Also to attract new investment into the city region and to help local businesses to internationalise their operation and to trade. They also provide aftercare to existing investors who are located within the city themselves. In terms of the types of investment and the sectors that the team generally target, it's around those specific sectors around advanced manufacturing and engineering, green energy, creative and digital tech, life and health sciences, and fintech and professional services. The team work very, very closely with our partners in Ulster University, Northwest Regional College, importantly the Chamber of Commerce, and other organisations such as Catalyst. You'll see within the report in terms of the locations that the investment strategy has identified as key markets there, the GB, Republic of Ireland, Europe and the US. And actually, in terms of the providers of investment by country, the US still remains the largest location for inward investment into the council area and the wider Northwest at 70%. That's followed then by GB and the Republic of Ireland. And specifically, the capital expenditure by sector is in those specific sectors of advanced manufacturing, and then that's followed by fintech, basically, and professional business services and agri-food. So you'll see within the report there's some highlights. I won't go through them all, but I would draw your attention to the investor visits. So in Q1, there were the team hosted 5 prospective investor visits, which I can assure you is a marked improvement, say, on the year before. None as yet, as I understand, have resulted in specific commitments, but sometimes it can take 12 to 18 months after an actual visit, which is really, really positive, given the challenging environment that we all are operating in at this moment in time. Also, what I would say is that obviously there was positive announcements like the opening of the EY premises over at Ebrington Plaza, given the plaza a real focus, and that's obviously been complemented by Alchemy also locating within that premises. And I do know that the 5 that visited in Q1, and we actually have hosted 2 in the last 2 weeks actually, they're all looking at that as a location potentially if they were to invest. And I think that the change actually in terms of those visits from our perspective is that, you know, quite often there was maybe a lack of choice when it came to office space and that type of thing. And that's certainly changed now. It gives you more options, gives the company more price points to look at, more flexibility in terms of its own business plan and that type of thing. So that's really positive. So in terms of the planned activities, so obviously one of the key activities is around the market activation piece. And there's 2 specific locations that we generally have been focusing on recently, and that's the US and London as a specific location, given fintech being a really important sector, and obviously then looking at the wider diaspora linkages, just the cultural connections and those markets and that type of thing. I won't go through all of the items there in terms of the report. What I would say is that the focus of this year's US visit is sort of twin track, one on academia and the other on business to business. We are, obviously, the messaging over the years has changed around what we talk about in terms of the location as an investment location. So it's more around the mutually beneficial potential of that investment. So we understand and we try to highlight to and market around the jobs that are being created by companies here within the US, as opposed to just the jobs that could be created here within Derry City and Strabane and the wider Northwest. And then also the potential for our companies to trade, do business and grow as a result of export opportunities and that type of thing. And then the second area around the academia I mean, in the report, you'll see that we've hosted, actually in May time, we hosted the colleges and universities from basically the state of Massachusetts into the city. There's a long-standing relationship between Ulster and Worcester State Uni, Northeastern University, Babson College, MIT, and Harvard, and that type of thing. So that remains, and actually the focus is becoming even greater in terms of those types of connection. Also, given the fact that in terms of the expansion plans, international students are a key plank in terms of the work of the task force themselves. So you can see within the report the planned activities. What I would draw your attention to, over the years through the Northwest funding, we were able to fund companies to be able to participate in what it's had different sort of iterations, but the most recent iteration was the Pathfinder program. We don't have funding at this stage to be able to facilitate that, but we are exploring other opportunities, potentially through the local economic partnership, collaborating with the Donegal Leo to be able to offer a kind of academic excellence program within Babson College for local companies here. That's to be confirmed, but everything else within the paper is on track and able to be delivered. And what I would say in terms of the London side of things, the plan is to look at an activation visit with fintech companies in quarter four actually, so February 2026, and for us to be able to showcase the region's potential as a RegTech location, focusing on the work that the Northwest RegTech cluster has been doing. So in terms of the recommendations. So members are asked to note the contents of the report and they endorse the planned activities for the year ahead. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Kevin. Before I bring in Councillor Hart, I just want to note one specific line in the pack and on your comments as well about the increase in investor visits, which is really, really encouraging. But in terms of, there's mention here of Invest NI and their role in driving investor visits. And I want to refer to the sub-regional economic plan that was launched in October 2024. And the fact that there is a target that 65% of Invest NI investments will be outside the Greater Belfast area by the end of the 26-27 tax year. I note that the start of that tax year is only 6 months away. And we would like to know how Invest NI is progressing, what the actions included in that action plan. I know it's been a considerable length of time since Invest NI have actually presented to this committee. So I would ask, I think it would be appropriate in the near future that we do have a delegation from Invest NI. I know that there's been a lot of criticism over the years of Invest NI's performance across this city and district about the Belfast-centric focus. Hopefully this changes, but it'd be great to get that deputation in the near future if that's possible. So, Councillor Harkin, or Councillor Hart, sorry.
Yes, for that. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Kevin, for the update. Working collaboratively and systemically with local stakeholders and our partners in Donegal County Council, it demonstrates the potential the Northwest region has in contributing to inward investment. And we find ourselves in a unique position here, and that without workings of Brexit, the Northwest region is perfectly situated. It's in a prime location as a staging point for trade with the EU, UK and US markets. I work for a global IT company in Derry, and DC, you mentioned EY going over to Edmonton and other companies. And I'd say it's a very easy sell when people go to look at that if you have inward investment. So you would take, you'd like to see something like that becoming a hub, tech hub, and you talked about fintech and green energy, and then in reference to digital technology services. As part of the delegation to the US, I think it's an important piece in the overall strategy and showcasing the Northwest region as a destination for forward direct investment. So I'm happy to propose the report. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. Do we have anybody willing to second? Councillor Boyle?
Cheers, Chair, and I'll keep it brief. Yeah, I think the important thing that we do here, and I appreciate the report there, Kevin, and obviously then the other information that you gave us. But if we're not and we can't win, and we really need to be talking to the right people in the right places at the right time. And I do sense this is the right time going forward. You've already referenced that Chair, yourself. 26, 27, it's not terribly far away. We need to be in position. If that's going to happen, we need to be positioning ourselves with the right people. And it is, it's good to see that things are going. Certainly feels like they're going in the right direction, and I do appreciate as well. Things like this do take time, and they don't happen overnight. I personally, obviously, in the time that I was mayor, led a couple of these delegations to the places that we're suggesting we visit. I certainly at that time thought they were useful, and the types of people we were talking to seemed genuinely interested. And I know that, follow-ups take time as well, so happy to second this, of course. I mean, the role of all of us is to try and make life better for our citizens and provide opportunities for them as part and parcel of what we do. And this should be obviously part and parcel of doing that. So happy to second.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Boyles. There's no dissent. So that's proposed by Councillor Hart, seconded by Councillor Boyle. Folks, it's 6:05. I just want to take a view from the committee. Do we just crack on, or do you want a 5-minute comfort break? Well, you want 5 minutes, Councillor Boyle? Okay. All right. Make it 3. Crack on. So item 9, Kevin, the Digital Transformation Flexible Fund.
Thank you, Chair. Members, purpose of this report is to provide a progress update on the Digital Transformation Flexible Fund and to seek approval for council match funding towards the programme. Members previously endorsed council's participation in the 7.5 million fund on an NI-wide basis back in 2022. I suppose that the headlines really of this fund are that it's actually part of the wider City Deal programme. Actually, it was probably the first one that's actually started to be delivered in this council area, albeit it's part of the 11 councils. So it comes out of our City Deal. The actual capital funding comes out of our City Deal allocation for the Digital Smart project. But the headlines are that it's basically grants to businesses from 5,000 up to 20,000 to be able to stimulate digital transformation. Obviously, hugely important within the business development sort of world. On a very, very positive front, we as a council area have been really, really successful in terms of bringing forward applications to the fund itself. You can see that in item 2.7 and table 1.1. What I would say is that it wasn't always that way. The first call, we actually really struggled, and we learnt a lot in terms of the types of businesses that we deal with as a council team, and the need for additional support for those businesses to bring forward applications into these types of programs, because the application process can be challenging enough, quite complicated, quite technical, and the wider council programs and other programs that are delivered by other agencies have been crucial in bringing these applications forward. Most notably, the support that you can get through Go Succeed. So lots of applicants now are using the Go Succeed mentoring to be able to help them on the transformation flexible fund journey, which unlocks the ability to access £20,000 of grant aid at a 70% rate. So really, really successful. The tables 1.2 and 1.3 give breakdowns by sector and also give breakdowns by project type. Lots of really innovative stuff. Importantly, within that whole AI sphere, good cross-section of businesses receiving support in that. So we're sort of coming towards the end of the programme, and actually we probably will get to the point where we'll have exhausted our allocation earlier than the rest of the councils, which is really testament actually to the fact that, you know, it proves that there's need here, but also a challenge over the years was saying that we had the demand, you know, and we do have the demand with a strong business community who are stepping up the plate and putting their money as match funding into this. So you can see the financial applications. They're outlined in the report, and the recommendation is that we ask you to note the contents of the report and approve the financial contribution, which is of 16,683, and that's contained within existing budgets. Thank you.
Right. Cheers, Kevin. So we have two indicated speakers, Councillor Hart, followed by Alderman Middleton. Ryan.
Thanks, Chair, and happy to propose. Thanks again, Kevin. This is an important initiative from Council in prioritising digital transformation and innovation among local businesses as a key catalyst for economic growth. You tend to find larger businesses have the resources and know-how to drive innovation. Maybe that's not the case at all times, but smaller companies may not be as well equipped. So this is an excellent opportunity to embed technology into their business processes. From the information, I can see there are workshops, support clinics, one-to-one advice and guidance to develop digital transformation plans. I was just had a few queries around, I know you mentioned mentoring there. Is there a template for business to follow in the adoption of their chosen transformation projects? I'm thinking along the lines of some companies may have adopted these designs previously and went through all the hard work, and instead of reinventing the wheel, can they be lifted and given to new companies coming along? Also, how is assistance provided for successful applicants in bringing the project from design to implementation? So is that mentoring part of that? So is it like a hand-holding exercise, more or less going through, you know, to help? Because I'm sure it's not easy for some small businesses to, you know, take that on themselves. So just those questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I suppose the approach that's adopted really, first and foremost, you know, whenever they do the diagnostic with the business themselves, now they mightn't necessarily have the technical know-how, but they generally know where the problems exist within their own business, basically. So that's a starting point. Then what happens then, through the diagnostic, we're able to draw out specifics, which then form the basis of a funding application. Now, not all businesses require that, but some businesses who do require that, we can lend them some support from other programs to basically fill out the forms, you know, to get to the panel. Now, it's a capital-based program, so it is implementation. You know, you will get a digital transformation plan, but it is implementation. So whether it's a software solution or a piece of hardware, whether it's a service improvement, an innovation, you know, it actually is being delivered within that program. So that funding then can be matched up with other Innovate UK type initiatives and that type of thing. Then afterwards, what our goal is, and part of the milestones for the program, is to try to deliver more Invest NI client companies. That's within, and that then unlocks a whole brand new world of support that they can access with much bigger you know, funding amounts, especially through the R&D stuff. So yeah, it's basically an end-to-end service, but it is about implementation. It's not just about the plan, it's about implementation. And we've loads of great case studies of companies that have received the support. And some of those companies have been, most of them are obviously micro and SMEs, but there have been medium-sized, larger companies who've actually availed of this program and have had manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, and who've basically been able to benefit from that and create jobs.
Next speaker is Alderman Middleton. Julie, I may have missed you last time, so
No
if I
worries.
did, I apologise.
Not a problem. So Chair, thanks for bringing me in, and thank you, Kevin, for the report. It's actually lovely to see such a positive report that focuses on innovation, and you can see how it has such a positive impact district-wide, thankfully very inclusive of the rural. I concur with all of Councillor Hart's comments, and we genuinely haven't spoken before the meeting, but he did ask my exact question. So Kevin, thank you for the answer there. That clears up what I was wondering about, and I'm happy to second as well. Thank you.
Okay, so there's no dissent. Proposed by Councillor Hart, seconded by Alderman Middleton. So the next 1, 2, 3, 4 items are open for information. Would anybody like to discuss any of those items? Councillor O'Farrell, which one?
It's just on the Alley Theatre in Strabane. Just reading through the report there, it's good news because initially we thought it was going to be closed for 6 months. I see now that you're hoping to have it 3 months closed now on the 26th of September. Is it, and open again? Is it still going to be 6 months? The other thing about it is the staff issues. It's not going to impact on the staff. They're going to be have jobs elsewhere.
Yes, there's no issue with staff. The closure is for 6 months. Apologies if it says 3 somewhere there, but yeah, no, it is definitely a 6 months closure from the end of September. There's no, I mean, there's no issue with the staff. Obviously the budget is there to cover the cost of the staff, and the staff, some of them will have reallocated duties, but we're working closely with them. But yeah, there's no concern for staff at all.
Thanks, Irene. It's just on the alley as well, and the staff related. I know there's quite a substantial number of casual staff. How are they going to be accommodated going forward? Are they going to be offered some other positions within the council for the duration of the closure? Because I've had some representations from some of the casual staff, so thank you.
So we've spoken to all the staff directly, and we're going to be working with them over the next couple of weeks. What we've made clear to them is that we, council, as you know, hold a number of other casual registers across the organisation. So we'll be working with them to determine their skills and availability, and to try and reallocate them to duties. There still will be requirement for some events that are either hosted in and around the Alley Theatre. You know, as you know, we're trying to relocate some of our own programming. So, you know, I have no doubt there will be opportunities either within their current role, using our current casual register, or with other casual registers. I suppose, strictly speaking, we're closed, and if we were to follow it to the letter of the law, we have no work for them as of the end of September. But we have assured them we're working closely with them to do that skills and availability match. And I'm confident there's no shortage of work. I've already had several calls from other departments asking me about available staff. So we're working through that at the moment.
Thanks, Irene, and I'm sure they'll be reassured by those words. Thanks.
And final indicated speaker is Councillor Boyle. John?
Chair, it's not on the Alley Theatre now. Everybody done that one? Okay, it's just in relation to the DNA Museum. Obviously, I note the report. I'm sure we all do. But I think it would be remiss not to welcome the fact that work is about to commence very soon. And, you know, I've sat in this committee many years up to a period, and this was always an ambition for this council, and it's finally coming to fruition. And you know, it's taken quite an awful long time and an awful lot of effort, hard work, and dealing with other agencies and government departments, etc., to get to this stage. So I didn't want to let it pass without thanking all the officers who were involved in this, in particular. Over the years, some of whom are no longer with us as well, but might have been their brainchild, or certainly that needs to be acknowledged as well, you know. So good to see. Really hopeful that it can be. I suppose I did have one question. It's probably been answered before, but I might not have been here or whatever. When are we expecting it to come online, on stream and open? Do we have an indicative on that? I know we're not. I'm not going to tie people down to dates, you know. But if we had a ballpark idea of it, it might be interesting and useful for us to know it.
We used to say in our house, when I used to tell the kids, whenever they'd ask me things like that, I say someday. We'll do that someday. Spring 2027. So yeah.
I would agree with Councillor Boyle. This is a really, really positive step. And my understanding is this is the first city deal project that we're actually going to break ground with. So this is momentous. So I think it's really, really positive. I have two further indicated speakers, Alderman Middleton and then Alderman Guy.
Thank you, Chair, for bringing me in, and also thank you to all of the team for the work done on the DNA Museum. We're going to be really celebrating when it does eventually open, and we are hugely thankful for the work that you've done. This is going to be momentous, not only for the city, but the district as a whole. Thank you.
Alderman Guy.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just on behalf of the Ulster Unionists, just to say thanks to all the officers involved and all the team. Done a remarkable job up to now, and looking forward to the final fruition of it. But great job all together. Well done.
Just to note in the report there's a date to the 24th September where there'll be a full briefing for media, and I know a number of elected members have been invited to that event as well. So there'll be much more details around the detail of the museum on that date.
Thank you, Aideen. So does anybody else want to raise anything else in open for information, or are we content to move into confidential?
Chair?
Chelsea, I'm sorry, Chelsea. Yep, work away.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick one. I just wanted to go in on agenda item 13, the sound update. It's very welcome news. And I was just wondering, would there be a timescale on that, you know, when it would be completed?
So the obviously the tenders awarded, the preliminary work has already started. Anybody was at GSP, there was an engineer here listening that day, already taken kind of views of the soundings. The equipment has been ordered, and then there'll be a week installation, and then there'll be obviously hand holding after that to make sure we get the sound levels and so on right. But we're hopeful that it'll be completed this month.
Perfect, thank you.
Just a supplementary on that one as well. And I do welcome the fact, because I'm certainly one of those who struggles with the sound system on here and have done for, actually, I think since it was ever installed, to be truthful. But obviously now with the online element, it can make things very, very, very difficult to hear people. So I look forward to that. I would imagine then that means we'd have to decant from here and not have meetings on here, or what might that, would that be done in the month that we're in Strabane for these meetings, or what's the plan there?
I don't think we'll have to decant. I think it'll be done in between the days of committees and so on. So we'll work around that. The plan is not to make this unavailable. So.
Okay, so can I get a proposer to move that? Well, Catherine McDade straight on there.